Welcome back, our loyal listeners, to Project Geekology, episode 69. Nice. And we have a very special 69th episode for you. Today we have... we're covering Godzilla Minus One, which is actually the movie released on the 69th anniversary of the Godzilla franchise. Not literally on the day, but it is currently in its 69th year of, being a thing. So it's very...
weird timing, honestly. Like, I didn't even know, like, that was news to me.
That's why I was really surprised when you said 69 that this is our episode. Anyway, so no innuendos here. This is strictly professional discussion of Godzilla Minus One for our 69th episode. And it's 69th anniversary. Actually, 2024 will be the 70th anniversary because the original film came out in 1954. This came out last year, so technically 69.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So before we get into all of that, you've already heard Anthony. But anyway, as always, my name is Dakota, and I'm joined with Anthony. And Anthony, what have you been up to recently?
Well, I went to go see Godzilla Minus One, and
that's good because we're covering it today, actually. So that's it's really.
I almost skipped over that one, but I had already raved about it a bunch to you, so it'll be cool to actually, cover it on the podcast. But yeah, man, was it Persona 3 Reload? I've been on that. It just came out a couple days ago.
What are you playing it on?
Was it? No, yesterday. PC.
Are you a PC guy through and through, or do you have certain things that are you prefer to play on console? I'm honestly just a gaming enthusiast through and through. I'm not just strictly PC. I will say that my preference is PC, mostly because, dude, I love Steam. Steam, they always have really good sales going on, no matter what. Sometimes you can pick up games for really crazy sales, and sometimes I'll bump into games that seem interesting, and I'll go for it because it's cheap enough, and I'll end up, liking whatever it is. But no, sometimes I'll hop on PlayStation, and there's certain experiences that I think would be cool to play on PlayStation, like the Spider-Man 2 game, obviously with the adaptive or the haptic triggers or the adaptive triggers. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
It's really, really cool. And then just the way that everything feels, the haptic feedback, the sounds that kind of come out of it. And, I have friends that there's games that they play on PlayStation that'll hop on PlayStation. The same thing with Xbox. And, there's always room for the Switch. The Switch always has their own
little place,
exclusives. Yeah. They have their exclusives. They had Tears of the Kingdom that came out last year, and so I really enjoy The Legend of Zelda, so I had to get on that.
What do you think about the rumors that Nintendo is going to unveil their Switch 2 sometime this year?
It's about time.
Yeah.
The
Switch has run its course. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's been out since 2017, and yeah, I would say that's about the console's life cycle.
Has it really been since 2017? That's
2017, yeah.
7 years now? Yeah, wow.
PS4 and Xbox One, those consoles came out in 2013. And in 2020, that's when they came out with the Series X and the PS5. So that's 7 years. So that's usually about the life cycle. Is 7 years is, it's pushing it, because by then, a lot of new tech has come out. You could get away with having a PC for 7 years, which honestly, that's what I've had mine for 7 years. It's run its core. It's not that it's run its course. It's just a lot of the hardware in it is old and having a little bit of a harder time keeping up with some of the new, more graphically intensive games.
Yeah, so you run into this problem where graphics in newer games are getting better and better and requiring more processing power.
Right.
And your equipment is slowly degrading
over time, just naturally.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
so you kind of run into like you're getting pinched on both ends basically. So eventually you're going to have to upgrade.
Absolutely. And honestly, the same thing applies with consoles. You know, consoles, the hardware and that usually starts to run its course. They try to keep it updated by coming out with different iterations of each. Like, I know that there's another PS5 that's being in the works, kind of like the Pro version. There's like a modular version that they want to come out with. I haven't really looked too much into Xbox. I'm pretty sure Xbox will probably come out with something. I mean, although they already have like their Series X and Series S, depending on if you're, you know, a disc person, a non-disc person, if you want something a little bit smaller. So, I mean, yeah, that's just honestly like with everything. But the thing that I like about PC is that you don't have to worry about backwards compatibility.
Right. Do you think that this is the last console generation that'll be disc or cartridge only?
That's a good question. Well, Nintendo, I feel like the next version of the Switch will be cartridge based. I could be wrong, but I feel like they still have a little bit more in the tank as far as that. I mean, we'll see. I mean, cartridge is a little bit harder to run some of these games. And you could tell that the Switch is definitely starting to run its course, and just with the way that cartridges do work. Because Tears of the Kingdom, while they did go with some like a cell shading effect, I guess to help alleviate the stress of a game like that, you know, they did the same with Breath of the Wild. I feel like a game like that could have done a lot better if they upgraded the hardware.
Okay. Yeah, I totally hear you. I also think for Nintendo, they'll probably want some sort of backwards compatibility with their Switch games for whatever is coming next. So yeah, I could see them keeping the cartridge game in play basically. But what do you think about like Sony and Microsoft?
Sony and Microsoft, that's definitely, I would say it is a controversy. Like there's a lot of people out there that have widely accepted just straight up digitally, you know, just having things digitally. But there's also still a very big fan base of wanting to own the games, because really when you buy things digitally, you're only buying the license. But when you buy a game that's, you know, the actual hard disc, you know, they can't take that away from you. You know, they could, you know, in theory, like we really don't own these games, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of it's crazy. It's crazy because, you know, if buying doesn't mean owning, then how is pirating theft? You know, it's just like, I understand like logically why that would be theft and everything, but the concept of like, you spend money on this to purchase. If you do not own it, then what is the point? You know? So yeah, I'm definitely, I understand the practicality of the, you know, the digital frontier and making sure, you know, for space's sake, for minimalist sake, for shelf space sake, you know, I understand the reasons people, and for convenience sake, you know, you just click buy on the, you know, PlayStation shop, Xbox shop, and, you know, it downloads within a couple minutes to an hour or whatever.
You also don't have to swap discs. I mean, you know, yeah, no, absolutely.
It's very convenient. I totally get that. But I do think that there's something to be said that, you know, about physical copies of not just games, but movies and music and pretty much everything. I think once that's gone, we're going to realize it was a mistake to let it go because of reasons like that. Because of, you know, on the movie side, you know, people, or, you know, these companies sell rights to their stuff to this streamer or that streamer, and then they take it away on the Apple Store, on, you know, Apple TV, or like the Amazon Prime Store. They'll remove it occasionally, and then those things are just not available anymore, even though you've bought them in the past. And so I can totally see that is going to become an issue later on down the line.
No, I totally agree. And I totally agree when you say that when it's gone, we will, you know, I will find that it was the wrong thing to like go away. I totally
I really do agree with that. The thing is that there's also, I mean, when you buy things digitally, you're not getting a monetary break on it either. You're still spending, say the game is $70 disc or digital, it's still $70 no matter where you get it. You're not getting it for $5 or $10 cheaper. It's still...
Yeah, like where is that $70? How is that $70 broken down exactly? Because back in the day, the argument was, well, this game is $60 because you need to pay the distributor, you need to pay the manufacturer, you need to pay the store, you need to pay the producer of the game. It was broken down really simply. But now it's just you pay the producer of the game the exact same price that you would pay at the store. Like, where's the real logic in there? So I don't know.
Right, and depending on where you shop from, say hypothetically you're buying from GameStop. If you're one of those pro rewards members, you might have points to add to like a coupon that's like $10 off or whatever. There's many reasons why. I mean, I guess you could buy some of those games digitally too because they sell the cards, but I'm just saying that there's just real no edge to buying digitally when it comes to money. You're spending this.
We'll be back after a quick break.
I hate talking.
Do you love talking about any topic and are never frustrated during conversations? Then I Hate Talking is not a podcast for you.
But if there are topics that you avoid, then listen to I Hate Talking.
Do you know the definition of every word others use? I Hate Talking is not a podcast for you.
But if you are curious about the definition and historical usage of words, then listen to I Hate Talking.
Do you know about current events and other random topics? Then I Hate Talking is not a podcast for you.
But if you enjoy conversations on a variety of topics, then listen to I Hate Talking.
Listen to I Hate Talking wherever you get your podcasts.
Episodes drop every Thursday. Listen, like, and follow I Hate Talking today.
No, I totally get that. All right, before we go off on too much of a tangent, what else have you been up to besides Persona, the new Persona game?
Just doing my day-to-day nerding, playing the last time we spoke, Power Worlds, messing around on that. I've played with a couple of friends on that, and
I was really excited to buy it, but it's not on the PlayStation Store, and I was just like,
oh, that's right.
Yeah, so I cannot physically play that. I'm sure my computers will be able to. I have IMAX, but yeah, I'm sure through Steam I could play it. But anyway, whatever.
But yeah, nothing too crazy. Just playing Persona and seeing Godzilla. What about you? What have you been up to? I know that you're a little bit more settled in after the move now.
Yeah, so I'm getting a lot more work done on like my projects with Geek Critique, like my YouTube channel. My biggest project right now is the Monsterverse. So, Godzilla 2014, Kong Skull Island, and those films and the TV shows Monarch. And I just recently watched for the first time, Netflix released in the summer of last year, a Skull Island anime. It's only 8 episodes. It's really easy to binge, and it's actually really fun. I was like really, really surprised by it. The initial look of it, I wasn't super big on, just from trailers or whatever, but the actual flow of the show and its humor, I found really, there was a couple parts where I was actually laughing out loud, which is, I wasn't expecting, honestly. I thought it was something that I was gonna have to watch just because I'm making a Monsterverse timeline video and just never watch again. But actually, I'm excited to watch it without having to take detailed notes on it, But so now I'm going through Monarch again. I had watched it when it first came out a couple months back, and now I'm watching it again, doing my timeline notes, making sure I catch everything that I can catch, so that because I don't do everything. I don't do anything by halves. I have to be I have to know everything about the timeline or something. So I'm by the time this is through, I will be probably one of the premier timeline people for the Monsterverse, which is kind of exciting because it's a pretty big thing right now with Godzilla X Kong, the new Empire movie coming out soon.
Right.
But I want to comment briefly on something that you texted me. Let me see if I can pull it up really quick, because it had me dying laughing. So you on Saturday, so last Saturday, January 27th, you said, gonna watch Godzilla in IMAX. I said, yo, I'm going tomorrow. And then you go, bro, forget the Monsterverse. This is the only Godzilla movie that exists. I was dying laughing.
I mean, after seeing it, I'm pretty sure you're probably like...
Yeah, no, I mean, so here's the thing. They both have their place within...
Oh, absolutely.
Within the Godzilla fandom. Some are more like... What I appreciate about this movie is that it takes the concept of Godzilla, strips away any corniness, any campiness, any extra like craziness, and just makes it a war piece, or a post-war piece.
Right. We'll definitely dig like a lot more into that.
Oh yeah, I'm already like jumping into it. But do I have anything else?
The
to
excitement
say?
is there.
Do I have anything else to say, or can we just jump right into it? Did you have anything else to talk about? I wanted to just mention really quickly that Carl Weathers passed away yesterday.
Yes.
As of recording this. That hit me hard. 76, so young.
Definitely.
I mean, it's not so young, but he seemed like a healthy person.
He did
for his age.
I remember reaching out to you about that yesterday. Yeah, it's definitely a big loss, a sad loss. He's been active. We've seen him in the Mandalorian, and I don't know. I really just like enjoy a lot of the roles that he plays. I mean, he's really into action, but he can be really, really funny too, because he's in Happy Gilmore. He also has like a brief appearance in Arrested Development.
One of the best roles in Arrested Development. If you haven't seen Arrested Development, just look up Carl Weathers Stew, STEW, and it's the most ridiculous clip ever. Basically, one of the characters, Tobias Funke, has invited Carl Weathers to his house so that he can get acting tips from him, or I think that's what the issue is, or what's going on.
It is something with acting. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
He throws away like a chicken bone into the garbage can, and Carl Weathers rips it out of the garbage and is like, oh, there's still a little bit of meat on that bone. Take this home, bag it up, put it in throw it in a pot. Baby, you got a stew going.
Dude, yes.
It is such a good... It's so ridiculous, and he says it straight-faced, and it's like, how does anyone keep acting when someone says something as ridiculous as that? I love it. He's going to be missed.
Yeah, he will. I mean, obviously, he was most notably known as Apollo Creed in the Rocky movies.
Yeah, dude. Huge role.
That spun off an entire spin-off series called Creed.
Yeah. His character had gravitas. Enough where, the legacy is still felt within... film and stuff, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I hope that they do some sort of tribute in the next Mandalorian. Well, like when they come out with that movie.
Right. Yeah. I forget. Is the movie Mandalorian and Grogu coming before season 4 of Mando, or is it vice versa? Is Mando 4 coming before the Mandalorian and Grogu?
It's a good question.
I don't think there's an answer yet. I don't think anyone really knows. Are you looking it up?
No. I was just kind of like getting myself set up with...
What is this?
Like,
the
cast.
Oh, you get one of those foldable phones?
Oh, yeah, I forgot to... Yeah, I did.
That's dope. Anthony's showing me his foldable phone over the screen. Which model is it?
Was it Z Fold 5?
How long have you had it?
For a little bit now. For maybe a few months.
Oh, I haven't seen it. Okay, well, there you go. All right. Anthony, what do you say we jump into our coverage of Godzilla Minus One?
I say it's about time.
So really quickly, the name Godzilla Minus One. It's an interesting one for a number of reasons. We were talking a little bit about the naming convention of Godzilla in this movie, because in the movie, correct me if I'm wrong, listeners, but in the movie, I remember pretty much every time, maybe not every time, but pretty much every time someone said the term Godzilla, they didn't use Gojira. I watched it in Japanese. I don't know if you also watched it in Japanese, Anthony?
I did. Is there a dubbed version?
I'm sure there is, but actually, I don't even know if there is a dubbed version.
Yeah, I watched it in sub.
Okay, so yeah, same here. And yeah, every time they use the term Godzilla, it's Godzilla instead of Gojira, which is the classic name of Godzilla in Japan. So I thought that was curious. I didn't mind it, obviously. I'm used to hearing Godzilla in America, but I was a little thrown off by it, just because I was expecting them to stay, Gojira, because the original 1954 film was Gojira, and then you had a recent Godzilla movie, Shin Gojira, instead of Shin Godzilla, So, yeah. Also, what do you think the -1 means?
I think the -1 means that it is less than 1.
So 0?
So Godzilla -1 means that it is earlier than the first Godzilla movie.
You can't see it, you can't see it, listeners, but my mind is blown. No, I don't think that's what that means.
What is it? I mean, we have the original coming out in the 1950s, and then this takes place in the 1940s. So they're saying, yeah, it's before.
I guess I could see it. So
honestly, yeah, I'm not too sure.
I have a feel. I mean, from what I've read online, the idea of it being -1 is pretty much that Japan has already been brought down to its knees. They're already at their 0 point after the war.
Yes.
They're in a period of rebuilding, and the beginning of the film kind of covers a period of 3 or 4 years, maybe, from when the main character Koichi, is that his name?
Yes, but they go by his family name most of the time.
Yeah, I think it was Koichi that they called him mostly. Koichi would be the family name.
Yeah, I mean, no. I think they called him by his
Shikishima.
First name. Yeah. Yes.
From the point after the war, when Koichi Shikishima comes back to his hometown, and it's all burnt to a crisp, his family's dead, to when Godzilla starts striking again, starts attacking Tokyo. I think it's a period of about 4 years, if I remember correctly, enough for the young child to grow up into a toddler. A little bit. It was a newborn.
Oh, yes. It was cool seeing in the beginning when we get that glimpse of Godzilla. It's very a lot smaller.
Yeah, it was strange. And in my head, I'm like, is this gonna be the size of Godzilla in this movie? Because he's kind of maybe a little larger than a T-Rex at that point.
Yeah.
So it was a little jarring, because you expect this 300-foot monster, rampaging through a city. But let's talk about that scene a little bit, because it was kind of scary. It was an actual it was a horror movie pretty much.
Yes, for real. And then singing in IMAX, it's so loud. Dude, just the roaring of Godzilla, and yeah, in that moment they're just, I don't know if it was before or after that moment, but they do talk about Godzilla, because there's the locals of that island that know about this creature. They're there's this big giant sea creature that just...
So I think it's before. I think they mentioned it before that
yeah.
Before they all get attacked, I think someone mentions that the locals have, a legend about a creature they called Godzilla.
Yes.
And I think it's shortly after they first hear Godzilla, maybe they heard him roar or something, and then someone brought it up.
I know that Koichi had seen some dead fish on the shore.
Yeah, so that was
which was like a precursor.
Yeah, they mention that he brings up deep sea fish.
Yes.
To the surface, when he comes up, which is an interesting idea. I wonder how deep sea it was exactly, because if you've seen the movie, so obviously spoilers, we're going to be talking spoilers the entire time.
Yeah.
If you see the movie, how they intend to initially kill him is by sinking him really low into the deepest part of the Japanese coastline, and then bringing him back up, basically crushing him and then letting the pressure expand him back out. So if he's a deep sea creature and he's bringing deep sea fish up to the surface, would he not be kind of prepared for that? Or obviously they must have sent him much deeper than that, right?
I think that what they were going for was an extreme change in pressure.
Yeah, right.
Godzilla probably does a gradual thing. Honestly, it's almost like when you're scuba diving, and if you go up too fast, you'll get the bends. So I'm pretty sure that that's pretty much with a sea dweller, or most sea dwellers, or the ones that breathe air. I would say they probably will not go up very fast. So, but yeah, I would say that's probably what they were going with Godzilla. But yeah, that even Godzilla in small mode in the beginning was very destructive, very scary, and just destroying everything.
I think because he was smaller, he looked faster, or he moved a little bit faster.
Oh yes, absolutely.
So somehow it was almost more menacing in a way than I remember seeing him. Obviously, he turned out to be way more menacing later when he was massive and just destroying everything. Let's talk a little bit about before that scene. When, the movie first starts, we have Koichi coming in to get his plane fixed because he's a kamikaze pilot. And basically it's the end of the war. It's the last days of the war. They've been told to kill themselves, basically. Throw themselves into the enemy, take out as many as you can. That's how the movie starts.
Yeah.
He obviously didn't do that. Obviously, if he was able to fly the plane to get his plane fixed, there was just enough, possibility for him to throw his plane into the enemy, So they check his plane out, and they realize this guy's just a deserter, or he just didn't obey that order, that.
Yes.
And from the get-go in the movie, you have a couple people who actively hate him for that, or at least basically belittle him for taking away from the perceived honor of sacrificing yourself for one's country.
Right.
And I thought that was really powerful. Especially when it came from his neighbor. I forget his neighbor's name. When he goes back to his hometown, and his neighbor, berates him for, how dare you come back here after you...
Sumiko?
The
neighbor. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, she basically, she berates him for coming back alive when, all the other kamikaze pilots have taken their lives for their country. She sees no honor in it. She sees only... that they lost the war because of people like him.
Right. And that notion, or that aspect of the movie, it's huge in this movie.
Yeah. The whole thing is about life. The whole movie is ultimately about living.
Absolutely. And something that I noticed about this film is that it's also a turning point for the way that, a lot of the Japanese are kind of I'm tired of having to needlessly sacrifice myself if I can live,
Yeah. That's a good point. It's almost like historical criticism of their own nation, because this is a Japanese movie made by Japanese people discussing the real world ramifications of the end of the war, and like, you know, how many people needlessly died during that war due to the Empire's mandate, you know?
Right. And I thought that was actually an interesting look. I feel like you never see Japan in a post-war aspect. And, you know, obviously there's a lot that's exaggerated because it's a monster movie. You know, I do thoroughly believe that, yeah, that was a thing. That if you're a kamikaze pilot and you came back or you cowered from it, you were going to be ostracized for it.
I 100%. And I think that is... that's part of the amazing nature of this movie, is that, you know, it's not uncommon in American cinema to see historical criticism of, say, the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We had Oppenheimer recently.
Yes.
Where, you know, they don't show that happening on screen, but they show the ramifications of like what it does to the soul of a person who creates something as destructive as an atomic bomb. You know, you see through Robert Oppenheimer's persona throughout the film that like eventually he gets to a point where like, we can't do this. Like this is terrible. Like, and then, you know, the president, you know, calls him a baby, blah blah blah. You have that real historical criticism laid out in front of you from an American film. I don't think you see that too often from other... I mean, at least I don't see it too often from other countries. Obviously, it most likely does happen, but this was a new experience.
I see what you're talking about.
This was a new experience for me, going into a movie from Japan about their perspective of violence and sacrifice in wartime and post-war time, because like we were saying, like in the beginning, it's very realistic that he was ostracized by a couple individuals because he didn't take his life for his country,
including one of the mechanics that survived from the island attack. It was literally just Koichi and this mechanic, you know.
Yeah.
And he's like, look, and the mechanic blames him in that moment, like, look what happened. This happened because you didn't pull the trigger on, because he told they had told Koichi to go into his plane to start shooting I think it was like a 30 millimeter gun that's in the
right. Yeah.
And so they told him, and they're like, look, you know, and he's like, oh, and so like this is honestly like a build up for the character over time, you know. There's deserting the kamikaze order and freezing up when he could have potentially saved these people, which honestly, you know, we know that was not going to do anything. Let's be real. It might have hurt him at being a smaller Godzilla, but he would have just tail whipped that plane and would call it a day.
Yeah, no, it's really... It's good that you actually bring that up, because I kind of forgot about it a little bit. But that actually is kind of like a smaller version of the more broad aspect of, you know, the war and like taking one's life for one's country. Because obviously shooting Godzilla from that ship would have been a suicide of its own kind. You know, like he would have died no matter what. If he absolutely. So him saving himself in that moment is a parallel to him saving himself from the kamikaze. It's not a one-for-one parallel, because obviously the order to kill yourself in a kamikaze fashion probably shouldn't have been given, you know. But
right.
And Godzilla did need to be killed in that moment. So there's a difference there, but it's kind of showing the same thing.
It was essentially a suicide mission. It would have been a suicide mission. It would have been, I mean, he might as well have done kamikaze if he would have just jumped. If he would have jumped into that plane and started shooting at Godzilla, it would have been game over. You saw what Godzilla did to that plane, even with him out of it.
Yeah, like, no, it took him nothing. It took him no time.
Completely toasted that thing. Yeah. It just got destroyed. Yeah.
So you have that parallel going into the beginning of the movie, where like he failed his country twice, basically, and that's how he sees it. You know,
that's
like
he sees it,
and he's just like eating himself up for years.
Yes.
one of the best lines that I remember is that like for him the war is still going.
Yes.
He never finished it.
Yes, and that's something that like is like a continuous thing. Even when he brings in Noriko and that baby that she pretty much fosters because the baby's real parents get killed.
Yeah,
they got killed during the war.
While we're still on that topic of like obviously life is valuable, let's talk about how those characters that once hated him for running away from duty, I guess, at the end of the movie, they want him to live. Like, they do not want him to sacrifice himself for the sake of the mission, And I thought that was a really cool way, and just a really, just beautiful historical criticism right there. Like putting things in perspective after some time usually leads people to different conclusions, like or different rationales, where they're very like pro-war at the time. After some time has passed, they realize what really matters in life, So I thought that was cool. In hindsight,
no, especially the mechanic. The mechanic was definitely the one that was, because Noichi, they kind of recruit him. This is for that last mission, obviously to talk about, or that last mission to take down Godzilla. And he's like, I'm gonna, Noichi's pretty much like, I'm gonna commit kamikaze to attack the inside of Godzilla with these explosives. And that kind of brings the mechanic on board. But yeah, by the end, he's when he finds out that Noichi survives that, the look of relief on his face is like, I'm glad he actually didn't do it.
Yeah. So quick amendment. It's Koichi, I believe.
Koichi?
Koichi and Noriko. I think you're confusing like the two names.
Oh yes, it is. Yeah,
that's all right.
You're right.
No worries. Yeah. So I love that. I love the way that it ends. You kind of see it coming a little bit because like it cuts off right before they start the mission, and the engineer basically says, and one more thing, and then it cuts off. And you're like, what is it? Is it a bigger bomb in the back of the ship, or is it a way for him to save his life?
Right. They did talk about the lack of ejection seats. They talked about lack of ejection seats. Underfunded military, basically like their arsenal was cheap and easy to break, and that's ultimately it ultimately reflected a lack of respect for lives in the war, and that's what they were trying to get at in that one scene where they were hyping everybody up in that moment. Man, I thought just that message alone, like the criticism of the past through these characters who had lived through it, is so cool. And yes,
none of that even has to do with Godzilla, but like the fact that they were able to tell that story in a Godzilla movie is it gives me chills just thinking about it.
It was such a, the biggest thing about this movie was that I feel like the Godzilla moments were earned.
Yeah,
and they were so well placed. Koichi, he, obviously post-war, he's got Noriko and, this foster child. This all comes into his life, and he's like reluctant about it, but it just kind of happens. And this, he meets with Kenji, Shiro, and Yoji, and they're essentially on mine cleanup duty. This is where we get some like, I really love those three characters too.
Yeah.
And, they get like a really sucky job, a mine cleanup job. They're in a wooden ship, and like even Koichi's like, dude, we're really doing this in this?
And it actually makes sense because the mines that they were cleaning up were magnetic.
Attracted to metal. Yeah.
They were magnetic mines. So using a wooden boat with a wooden hole makes a lot of sense because you're not going to be attracting the mines. I thought it was a cool concept, and it's one of those jobs you wouldn't consider is like a necessary thing after a war, but like
I didn't even think about that.
It makes total sense.
It makes total sense, but I didn't even think that was a job, mind cleanup. But yeah, I really loved the Jaws moment that we got. The moment where they're fighting Godzilla in the sea.
Oh, and they're using the
mines,
mines
dude,
as bombs. That's
Godzilla,
really cool.
Dude, he was so scary in that moment.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, like how massive Godzilla was in that moment next to this little ship. And I love how Yoji was essentially like the Japanese Quint.
Yeah, he was. He was, actually. That's a good point.
And yeah, in that moment, like, dude, it was such an intense moment. And you're like, man, like, I don't want any of these guys to die. I mean, obviously, Koichi was most likely would be the one to survive, but these other guys, you don't know.
Yeah, there's quite a few times where I was like surprisingly like laughing out loud at just like some of the realistic, but like I want to say dated humor, like something that you would see like in a Jaws type movie, especially from characters like Yoji. When he says that, I forget exactly what he said, but it was something along the lines of like, we can take him if we have to do it for our country. And then he sees Godzilla, he's just like, never mind.
Yes, dude, he was like, yeah, he totally like, yeah, because it was in that moment where they go up to, it's like a U.S. ship that got destroyed, and they're there like on like patrol duty for Godzilla, and Koichi's like, this is insane. Why? This is a small ship.
Yeah, there's no way
because
that we can
only
do anything.
Koichi knows what this creature is capable of, and it's not until that moment he sees that this creature's gotten a lot bigger. They were waiting for that warship to come in, and I feel like this is where we get the first glimpse of Godzilla's like true destructive power, where you see the his like atomic breath or his heat ray.
Yeah, they call it heat ray in this one instead of atomic breath, which is interesting.
But it's so scary. Like the atomic breath is like this is the scariest that I've ever seen. The atomic breath, it was like a nuclear bomb going off.
Yeah.
And I loved that they kept that like the old sound that it used to make back in the day, that old ray gun sound.
Yeah.
They kept that sound. What about when? Oh my gosh, dude! I was just like, oh my, I recognized it instantly. Godzilla's theme, like, gave him that old theme.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I could have gone the whole thing and just not mentioned it, but like that is such an important part of Godzilla's DNA, is that that theme, the da na 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 da na na, and it's so powerful. And I was thinking about it the day after, like, and I compared the new recording of that theme versus like the 1954 version of that theme to like the 90s version of that theme, and it's the same. They don't change it. There's no reason to fix, because it's not broken, But meanwhile, like Doctor Who, they have a franchise that's now 60 years old. Every couple of years, they redo the theme music. It's a very similar rendition, just different note, or not different notes, but it's different instruments and sounds that they add to it to make it new and fresh. But like the original, if you ever like go back and listen to the 1963 original by Delia Derbyshire, it's so good. Like, it is the best version of all of those Doctor Who themes. Like, why can they not realize how good something like the original themes is?
Yeah. I was just so blown away when I heard that theme. I was like, oh my gosh, like they brought it in, and like it was so fitting for this Godzilla movie. It really I felt like this movie was really an homage to the original.
Yeah.
It felt like an updated version of the original. I mean, you have Godzilla coming and attacking the city, and then when the tanks come through and they start attacking Godzilla, I was like, it feels like very much so like the original. And when Godzilla uses his atomic breath and like the aftermath of that, dude, I was like, oh my gosh. Like, out of all the Godzillas, like, this is like the most destructive like power. And I love the charge up, like the spikes on his back would shoot up as he was charging it up,
and it looks like when you saw that happening, you knew it was coming. You're like, oh man, this is not gonna be good. But then when it happened, you're like, it left me like this, like my mouth was like open, like, oh my gosh, like he's like so like crazy strong.
Yeah.
And the fact that like he was like super strong, like he was tail whipping everything.
It was impressive.
And yeah, it was so crazy. And then it was when Godzilla was attacked. I forgot the name of the Japanese city.
Yeah, I forgot it too. Shoot.
But yeah, Noriko was there. Koichi goes there to save her because he knows. He's seen Godzilla like a couple times now, and they hear about Godzilla. He's like, oh my gosh, she's there because she's starting to work. And in that moment, you know, it looks like she dies. She gets like knocked back by the like concussive blast of this like nuclear. It was essentially a nuclear bomb that went off when Godzilla did that.
Yeah.
It was a nuke.
Yeah, it was crazy. And that's, I think, the scene where they fully unleashed the Godzilla theme by Akira Ifukube, the original like Godzilla theme, and it's so powerful. It's so good.
It was so well placed. It was such a strong moment. Like it. Yeah, you're right. This is where we got the theme fully because this is Godzilla fully unleashed.
Yeah.
Like we've only gotten little glimpses of Godzilla. You know, they built up finally to his atomic breath, and you know, it was like shooting through that ship, and like when that happened, I was like, oh my gosh, that's insane. But then when he like used like his full power on like just the tank shooting at him, like in that general direction, I was like, oh, like yeah, dude, like the full power, like, you know, him just stampeding. And
you felt it. You just
felt it.
Yeah.
Yes, you felt it. And Godzilla was massive, and it was really cool getting a Godzilla movie. It was cool getting a Godzilla movie that really dove deep in the lives of, you know, the people that he's stampeding on.
Yeah, and that's always kind of a staple in some ways, that, you know, you're gonna get the point of view of the humans involved. They've tried that to various success throughout the years in both like the Toho films as well as like the legendary Monsterverse stuff. But it's rare, if ever, that has ever happened to the degree that they've been able to accomplish with this movie. It's just it's just so good. And
like Godzilla was like the overarching theme of this movie, or the overarching enemy of this movie, but it was like not the focal point of this movie.
Yeah.
Like
he wasn't the main character.
Yeah, I mean, he had that on-screen presence, don't get me wrong. And I think it was Square Enix that worked on this movie and brought Godzilla to life.
Did they?
He looked good.
Yeah,
that did. Godzilla looked for CGI. That was a really good. They did a really good job on this Godzilla.
From what I've heard, it's only 35 guys on the VFX team, which is insane. Imagine that, for 35 guys with between 10 to 15 million like of a budget for the entire movie. So that's everything from sets.
No rubber suits here.
No rubber suits. That's pretty much all VFX, but like a lot of on-set stuff, a lot of actors, a lot of just secondary people in the background, a lot of huge sets that were super believable. Actually, I wanted to talk about, you mentioned that this movie felt like an homage to the original. Yeah, 100%. And even like, maybe not the original, but like over the course of, you know, the 69 years that Godzilla's been around, there have been certain things that are just iconic to the monster, including the way that it screams, like the roar. Like if you hear Godzilla's roar in any media from America to Japanese, you know exactly what it is. You know it's Godzilla.
Right, like you could hear it in an audio clipping and know that it's Godzilla's roar.
Yeah, and same thing with like him powering up his atomic breath, where it starts at like the base of his tail and it goes all the way up, and it's like and it's like an oscillating like crescendo effect. It's so cool. I love that stuff. But yeah, getting back to like it being an homage to 1954's Gojira, I think. I watched the movie for the first time The one and only time that I saw the movie was when it was re-released in black and white. And for me, it was the only way that I saw it. For me, that was the definitive version of the movie, because that's how I watched it for the first time. But can I just say that it was so incredible? Like, it felt like a 1954 movie. You know, like, none of the dialogue was out of place. There were no like modern quips in the dialogue that took me out of the story. You know, that you would get modern quips in stuff like if this movie were made by Legendary for the Monsterverse, there would be modern quips mixed in with the dialogue, basically. Like if you remember Kong Skull Island, you had John C. Reilly's character, Lieutenant Marlowe or something like that, who has been like trapped on Skull Island since the end of the World War. His humor is very modern. It doesn't feel like it's part of that 1973 world or World War II world, basically. But with this movie, all the humor, everything that was in it felt realistic to the time period, and coupled along with the fact that it was in black and white, for me, it looked and felt like it was a movie straight out of 1954. Like, that's how good the rendition or this movie is in black and white. Like, I was floored. It looked beautiful, and it's not just like a desaturated version of it. They like upped certain contrasts. Like, people have compared like trailer footage of like the normal trailer and the black and white trailer, and they've desaturated it so that it's black and white. And like they've desaturated the original like color trailer into black and white, and it's not the same. Like they clearly like upped the contrast and just made it look more filmic for the black and white stuff.
They worked on it. They actually worked on it to make it look good.
Oh, and it looked good, dude. It looked.
But I told
really
you
good.
that. But I had told you that, like, so I seen it in color. That's what the showing was. It was in color, but I had said that it was the type of movie that I could see it working perfectly in black and white. Yeah,
and I have seen clips and here and there of the color version, and it looks great. Obviously, it's a beautiful film. It should look great in color. Some of the things
I want to see it in black and white. I'd actually I was thinking of actually like getting this film, and I hope that they have both versions.
Oh,
I want to see it in black and white.
I hope so too. Like, even sometimes black and white makes a movie better. I don't know. I don't know if you ever watched Zack Snyder's Justice League, but he also released that in black and white, and it was like a special version of black and white. It's not just a desaturated version. They worked on it, like this one. I think it looks better than the original movie. I think it looks better than like the Zack Snyder's version of the movie. That for me is a cooler version. So it's just kind of the same for Godzilla Minus One in this respect, although I haven't seen the color version yet. That said, there were a couple scenes that were confusing for me to look at, because I couldn't tell what I was looking at without color. So when the fish were coming up in the beginning, like when the dead fish were popping up, could you tell immediately that they were dead fish? Like, did they look weird to you, or?
They did look weird. I'm like, what is that? Like, it looked like body parts of something. Like, and
okay, all right. So then maybe
it did look kind of odd.
Maybe that's just a thing in general. Because in black and white, I thought they were like eyeballs that were like coming to the surface. So I was like, what am I looking at?
They did kind of have like that
like
weird,
bulbous,
like fleshy look. Yeah.
And at the end of the movie, when we find out Noriko's alive, and they hug on the hospital bed, whatever, you start to see like something like crawling up her neck, like it's like a virus on her neck.
Oh, I don't think I noticed that.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Then I guess I was gonna ask what color what color the stuff was, because in my color, in my showing, it was just like pure black, like just crawling up her, because they kind of like leaned into like her shoulder, and there was like a sinister sound, and they had that little bit of black coming up her neck, kind of like she was infected with something, basically.
Yeah.
It kind of opened it up for a sequel, even though whether or not this ever gets a sequel, I'm okay, because it was a perfect movie. Like, it's so good.
It was so good. I mean, they did open it up to a sequel,
right?
Because of the ending, and because God, they with the whole kamikaze moment, well, not kamikaze moment, but where Koichi crashes that experimental plane into the mouth of Godzilla, like right as he's like charging up his heat ray again, it blows up Godzilla from like the inside out, and he kind of crumbles and goes into the sea. But this Godzilla, and as we've seen a couple times in the movie, has regenerative, like this like really crazy regeneration. Yeah. And they like blow up this mine in his mouth early in the movie, and and his like mouth, his like face is all blown up, but he regenerates. Well, that's what happens at the end of this film, is that he starts to regenerate.
Yeah, so that's definitely terrifying, because one thing about this
Godzilla,
how do you kill this? Yeah, how do you? There's no way. I mean, one thing about this Godzilla that I find particularly terrifying is that he had no motive. He was just pissed. He just went into town ready to rip, roar, and go. You know, like he was evil.
Right.
You know.
Right. Like, yeah. Like in the other iterations of Godzilla was almost kind of like passing through the towns. He's like, just making my way. And then like when people start reacting, shooting at him, that's when he would start like, okay, well, I'm going to destroy you because you're bothering me.
So the original Godzilla, he was a monster. You know, like he was an actual villain that's definitely what this film tried to emulate. You know, like it went back to the roots of the character.
Yeah.
But after 1954, Toho kind of realized, oh, there's money in this. We gotta figure out a way to like elongate this series, basically. And he ended up becoming somewhat of like a protector of humanity.
Right. And like they have like that, dude. There's this like old cartoon. It's a Godzilla cartoon, and they would like essentially summon Godzilla from the water by pressing this button, and I guess it would send out this frequency, and Godzilla would come out and destroy whatever it was, you know?
That's awesome. I don't think I've ever watched that. I can't even picture it, but that sounds fun.
I remember seeing it a long time ago, like when I was a kid.
Yeah, that's dope. Anthony, any last words on Gojira for our 69th episode here?
I mean, if last words means that I have like another like 30 minutes to say, you know.
Oh, shoot.
No. Dude, this was such a good movie.
I can't wait to watch it again, dude. It's amazing.
I absolutely want to watch it again. It was, I mean, I've seen like a good bit of Godzilla movies like throughout my life, and I could easily say that this was like probably my favorite. I'm pretty sure you have another favorite, but I loved this film so much because it felt like such like it was a really well told Godzilla movie. Like the story was really like just fleshed out. It had like a really good like human story to it. There was a message behind it. Like you said, there was, you were talking about that they're essentially, looking down on like their bad history. It's just, if any of y'all like, Godzilla movies and haven't seen this one because it's not connected to the Monsterverse, or that you're a casual fan of Godzilla and you're maybe thinking about it, definitely watch this movie. This movie really just blew my mind. It blew Dakota's mind, obviously. And yeah, I'm definitely going to watch it, and I'll probably see it in black and white.
Oh yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait to hear what you're thinking or what you thought about that. And I plan to watch it in color as well, just so that I could like a better picture altogether of this incredible film. It's, in my opinion, it's bar none the best Godzilla movie.
Yes.
Before we go, I just want to mention that my favorite line in the entire movie is when they have Shiro's character, the young fisherman character, who wants to join them in their final battle against Godzilla. They tell him to stay home, stay out of it. And, he's fighting for, the opportunity to join them. And Yoji goes, not having gone to war is something to be proud of.
Right. Yeah, because, he's frustrated that they don't want him to go. And he's like, oh, it would have been different had I gone to war. And yeah, like he kind of stops him. He's like, don't say that. not having gone to war is something to be proud of. Yeah.
Such a powerful line, dude. It gave me chills when I watched. I think I actually cried a little bit when he said that. And like he's yelling at them as they're walking away to like let them come, dude. I was like moved. I was really moved by that line. I think you have to grade it on a curve a little bit, because obviously this could not exist without the 1954 film. And that's a great film, like in its own right, you know. And there have been plenty of great Godzilla films, but there have been just as many real stinkers, you know.
Oh yeah.
Let's be honest. But yeah, with Godzilla you have to grade on a curve a little bit, because the budgets aren't going to be the same as American cinema. You have to realize like campiness comes in to the picture like in a major way, you know, in the 60s and 70s and the 80s. And more recently, like they've tried to go for a more, Japan in particular has tried to go for more serious movies when it comes to Godzilla, and this is by far the best one.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just, do I think it's better than anything that Legendary has released? Yes, I think it's better than everything that Legendary has released.
Dude,
that's
absolutely.
Not to say that I'm not a fan of what Legendary has concocted with their universe that they have going on right now. I think it's cool what they have, and I want them to continue with that. But yeah,
those are good action films. This was a good monster film.
This is, it's a different beast altogether, even though it's the same beast.
Literally, it's a different beast, literally, cinema wise. But like, you know, I don't know. It felt like, I don't know. It felt like Godzilla to me. Like, dude, it was Godzilla.
It is the quintessential Godzilla movie. Guys, thank you so much for listening to us here for our 69th episode of Project Geekology. We hope you enjoyed it. And hopefully we can get some more monster movie reviews out for you guys soon. Anthony, what are we doing next?
Definitely no other, Godzilla movies, because literally this is the only one that exists. Maybe the OG one, but Hold on. All right, so we've done a review of Godzilla 2014. Oh, I took that one down because it doesn't exist.
Okay, it doesn't exist anymore. Sorry, guys.
Nah, I'm just kidding.
Would you want to do the 54 movie next? Would you want to cover that?
I think that would be cool.
It's a different sort of, like, while we're still in this mindset of just like
the
basking,
mindset of absolutely
basking in this glory.
Where would one watch this?
I'll look it up right now.
Dakota.
Is that it?
1954
on Max.
Yeah.
All right.
They got a lot on here actually. Godzilla versus Gigan, Mecha Godzilla. Dang, dude, they got a lot. Son of Godzilla, one of the stinkers that exists.
All right, so next week we're covering Son of Godzilla. No, we're covering Gojira, 1954. So stay tuned for that. That's gonna be a fun one. That's a movie that Jen's wanted to watch for a long time actually, so I can finally show her that. So this will be fun. Guys, thanks so much for listening to us here for our 69th episode. You can check out our socials in the show notes down below. We're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, and be sure to leave us a 5-star review if you like what we have to say.
Absolutely juicy 5 stars.
I don't know what to say to that besides bye.
Bye.